What's up, everybody? This is Sam Callahan back with the Callahan Training Group podcast. I was waiting to record the next one until I got this new mic. I've been kind of filtering through cheap mics, and I just bit the bullet and got a nice one. So hopefully this mic saves me some heartache in the future. But welcome back to the podcast. So what I want to talk today was a little bit of nerd stuff. People tend to like it when I nerd out on things. Everybody's heard enough arguing about shooting and who they like and who they don't like. So I'm not doing that. I'm talking about what works for me, and I think what would be like considered the shooter's superpower at the end of the day. Before I get into it, I just want to thank a couple sponsors specific to today, but also the ones that sponsor not only me as a competitive shooter, but me as a match director allows me to run a lot of the matches I do at the Double Eagle. I want to thank Vortex Optics. I've been shooting their optics for over a decade now, and couldn't recommend an optic company more for rifle through pistol optics. I run the Defender series now in competition, the Defender XL with the 2 MOA. Nailed it. Impact Machine is the person who, Scott down at Impact Machine, he's the guy who mills all my stuff to my slides. I prefer direct milled optics to guns. If you're going to shoot a dot, mill it to your gun. If you need plates, Scott is also some of the best plates I've done. So if you're going to mount an optic to a gun, if you're going to do slide cuts and stuff like that, Impact Machine's the guy. I want to thank Ghost Holsters. I've been rocking Ghost pouches for over 10 years now. This is actually my 10th season in a row. I've been rocking their holster for like 4. I can't recommend a better company. I've got codes for all this stuff attached. If you want codes, you can head to my website. I've got codes for all the people I'm mentioning. Modern Material just came out with their newest competition rifle, and that's going to be followed by a PCC in the future. But if you want to go check out a 5-pound competition-ready AR out of the box, that's better priced than most of the other shelf guns, and you don't have to do a thing to make it run. Modern Material. Just wanted to thank Shooters Global Timers. They're a big help. They're the reason I can run a lot of my matches. I've got about 6 of their timers floating around. They are the match timer, and it's also what I use to coach myself and others 100% of the time. So when I'm talking about all the data and all the number stuff that I base all my math and all my systems off of, it's thanks to Shooters Global and the ability to kind of like really dive into numbers thanks to them. So there's a bunch of other sponsors I have on my website, but just pertaining to today's vision talk and some nerding out, I want to thank the people who I will be mentioning today. So really what I want to talk about today is what the hell I'm talking about when I'm talking about speed of sight. So I threw the shirt on today. One of my favorite sayings in the sport. Speed of sight shooting is when somebody asks me how fast to shoot, I say speed of sight. How fast should I shoot this? How slow should I shoot this? How accurate should I do? What should I do? Shoot at the speed of sight. It's a clever way for me to stop answering somebody directly as far as like managing how fast or how slow or how hard or soft to shoot, because we all know those are bullshit terms. But what I want to start to do is understand that no matter your skill level, speed of sight shooting is the way, because your vision's your superpower, and I'm going to base everything I do off of vision, down to shot calling, down to every decision I make is all going to be off of vision. And I want to start to talk about that. First thing I want to talk about is I am one of the more specific things that I talk about. I'm obsessed with spots, quote unquote. I just put the word spot as a general. It's not that it really holds any weight. It's just that I want to start thinking spot like I would think a checklist, like I would think a bullet on a checklist. What's my spot? When I look at that spot, when I glance at that spot, I'll know what to do based on what I'm observing at that spot. So I'll get a little crazy when I talk about this, but really the big thing that I like about the whole visual game is it's a mental game. It's not a physical game. So you're not going to get better results by looking harder or looking like there's no physical way to do it. And you start to understand, well, vision's my superpower. If I can hold the gun and just control the gun, this is one of the better things you could start to work on. Vision, mental game. It's not a physical game, and you start to twofold train. Well, vision is going to help me shoot, but you also start to realize that muscles aren't going to help me shoot any better. It's going to be my mental. It's going to be my vision. It's going to be my ability to confidently deliver shots and confidently move off of those shots when I'm done shooting them, shot calling. So, I really like to talk about first thing when I talk about spots. I like to think about a spot focus, a small spot focus. We hear target focus all the time, like sight focus versus target focus. And target focus is a really good start, but it's not enough. And that's where I want to start talking about this all the time. When I'm talking about spot focus, when I'm talking about focusing on a target, I'm talking about focusing on a paster size 1-inch black spot that I'm imagining on the target at all times. It's good to train at those spots until they're a habit to look for. But then once they're habits to look for, I start to take the spots off and just start to imagine a 1-inch spot, a paster size zone that I'm always going to affix my eyes to, regardless of the difficulty of the target. So that freaks people out. First of all, target focus isn't good enough. When I say target focus, I don't mean just rest your eyes on the target. Like if you're a camera, you could focus on the plane of the target, but everything is in focus in that plane. What I want you to do is a visual shooter is I want you to start to pick a very specific spot and look at that very specific spot on the target. So yes, the target's in focus, sure, but I am focused on that tiny little spot. I am aiming at that tiny little spot. My eyes are crosshaired on that tiny little spot directly. It is everything to me. I say look at it with hate in your heart. Like whatever you need to do to stare at that thing more than anything else in your vision, that thing has to be in focus, not just the target, that little tiny spot. So when I'm just looking at the tiny little spot, then I can start to base all my decisions off that tiny little spot. I don't care if it's at 7 yards or 100 yards. I'm going to look for a tiny little spot, and I'm going to treat that tiny little spot with the respect that it deserves. And that's where my whole system started to come off of. Speed of sight shooting is based off of visuals. It's based off of what vision do I want to shoot. I will shoot just that visual. I won't get a better visual than necessary. And then you're not in control of time anymore. You're not thinking about speed or go fast or go slow or anything like that. You're just thinking about, hey, I linked up to a tiny little spot on the target at 7 yards. What is a correct visual on that? Well, that's going to take a lot of training in the background and start to develop a system of understanding, hey, what does that look like? Rifle shooters describe that as the word dope, data on previous engagements, meaning, hey, they've shot enough similar engagements on this that they understand that what it should look like if they were to see it in the field. So if you practice enough moving targets at 500 yards, when you're walking in the mountains of Colorado with your rifle, you know how to shoot that sheep without having to stop and use a rangefinder. You just kind of pop into your head, oh, I've seen this visual before, so I know how to treat it. Well, as shooters, that's what my system started to become. I started to understand, well, what do my visuals look like at 7 yards and inward to get 2 alphas? What do I need to see? And it's not much, as a lot of us have come to find, right? I call it shooting streaks, where all I really need to see is a streak that centers off, or rather, I'll say bounces off of my spot. So when I say bounce off, I mean like, hey, the streak is going to look like a bouncy ball, and the bouncy ball is going to be kind of ricocheting off of that spot in the center of the target I saw. But do I ever need the spot to stop? No, I can be shooting streaks. I'm just looking for a general streak around my target. I'm pulling my trigger as soon as the red touches my spot, and that's a good enough sight picture, but I'm still really, really tight focus on a tiny spot. Well, 7 yards and inwards, that's good enough on an open target to achieve 2 alphas. That's any less of a sight picture. You're not guaranteed 2 alphas. Any more of a sight picture, you are, but you're going to do it at the cost of speed. So I started to realize, all right, visually, I needed to pick a spot and understand what it needs to be treated like inside of 7 yards. No time, no speed, nothing like that. Just, hey, what do I need to see? Cool. And then I start to develop some data for like, hey, what about headshots inside of 15? It might not be a loose, tiny, crazy streak like I was talking about, but it's not going to be a stop dot. I'm not shooting bullseyes at 25. I'm not trying to shoot a plate at 25. I'm talking like a 8 to 12 yard headshot. What do I need to see? It's kind of like a respectful dot. It's going to center. I'm going to wait to see it stop a little bit more. So essentially in my brain, I'm looking for a dot that is controlled. It's not going to be a streak, but it's not going to be stopped. I'm looking for what I would describe as a controlled dot. And again, because I'm me and this is my system, this is how I think and feel and see. I don't know how you're going to think and see and feel. This is just after a lot of reps, I know that at 12 yards, I want to see what I'll call a respectful dot. When I see a respectful dot, I'll pull the trigger respectfully. What does that mean? It's not that I'm going slowly or prepping triggers or anything, but I'm just not whacking at a trigger if I need a respectful dot. If I need a respectful dot, I need a respectful trigger. Seems pretty simple to me because I'm not basing anything off of speed or control anymore. I'm just starting to say, hey, I need to see a certain visual, and I'm going to pull the trigger in such a way that I don't disturb that visual. Pretty simple concept to me. And then, hey, when I start to see targets at 25 yards, what do I need to see? Stop dot. No more, though. I don't need to stop the dot and then aim it harder and more. If I'm looking at that tiny little spot that I want my dot to show up to, and my dot stops on that shot, I just need to break the trigger. I will break the trigger with a stopped trigger now. Because if I need a stop dot, I need a stop trigger. For most, I'm a Glock shooter. That means a prep trigger. If you shoot a nice trigger, that just simply probably means touching the trigger. Just touching the trigger. Just awareness with where the trigger is. But now we can say all my decisions are based off of spot focus. Based off of spot focus. Not target focus, spot focus. And now these little spots are going to tell me what to do. if you've listened to some of my previous podcasts, you'll know that my system is all based off of my eyes lead the whole system. So with that in mind, my eyes lead my whole system to a spot, which means I should be looking at a spot long before my gun shows up. Long before is a relative term, but we know we're thinking in tenths and quarters of seconds here. So if my eyes are there before the gun shows up, I know how I'm going to visually treat that target. It has nothing to do with shoot it fast or shoot it slow now. I just know if I put my eyes on a target and that's inside of 7 yards, well, I know I just need to see 2 color confirmation reds on that, and I can move my eyes off of it on the second color confirmation red. I don't need to worry about stopping the dot or having any kind of respect. I've predefined what the respect means. For me, it's color confirmation red on the predetermined spot. It's not color confirmation red anywhere, though. It's not looking the center of the target. It's color confirmation red on my spot, and I will get what I want every single time. So if my eyes lead the gun, I'll know by the time the gun shows up how to treat that, and it's not really going to be a speed thing anymore. It's a timing thing. If my eyes lead the gun, I'll shoot the gun. I'll shoot the gun. I am now void of control of speed. I'm void of control of any effort or try, and I'm just 100% holding the gun with enough respect that the gun returns back to my eyes every time. That's part of my system. And if I leave my gun, I'll know how to respect the gun as it gets there, right? It seems kind of thoughtless in a good way now. You're just saying, hey, everything's based off of what do I see? I will do this. What do I see? What will I do this? If you're practicing and you have some erratic results on a certain kind of target, that just means you got to go and do some research, as I call it, hit the lab and put that target in the lab and start to say, hey, what kind of visual respect do I need on this target to get the results desired? And then plug it back into my performance training. That's going to be a big deal, is just starting to understand, hey, targets aren't hard or easy. If we're going to start training like this, they just require a certain kind of visual. I don't want to then start thinking targets are hard or easy. I don't want to think fast, slow. I don't want to put any value on the target. I just want to think, well, to achieve 2 alphas on that target or to achieve a hit on that target, I just need a certain visual. I will achieve that certain visual by doing X, Y, and Z. And if that's a hard thing for me to do, I'll just do that in my practice until it feels easy. I know this starts to sound simple and it starts to sound overly simplistic, but that became part of this goal. The whole goal is vision's my superpower. I'm going to base everything off what I need to see. And if I'm not getting what I'd like to see visually, I'm going to train it until I understand it better or I can physically do the thing. It sounds to me now like a system that's easy to build forward on rather than say, I hate this target. I like this target's hard. This target's easy. No, none of that nonsense. We're just going to do the research necessary, understand the visuals necessary, rinse, repeat for every single target presentation that you're going to see. Now, I'd say do it to the ones you're super uncomfortable with so that you've gotten enough visual repetition that you just know, hey, I know what I need to see in this target. I don't need to put any more or less effort into it by the basis of the system. I hold the gun one single way. I don't try harder on one target over another target. I just have to maybe wait for the sight picture to settle down a little bit more in this target. I might need to practice choosing a very, very specific spot on these harder targets. Maybe that's the issue. So I like to talk about the spot focus when it comes to like no shoots and things like that. One of the things that, and I forget who one of my mentors in the sport have spoken upon this. When I'm really focused on a tight spot, you're going to lose up to about 30% accuracy when you're going fast. It's just fact of life. So if I pick a 1 inch by 1 inch square in the center of an alpha, even when I'm going fast, losing 30% guarantees me alphas. Well, if there's a no shoot in the way, that's where we start to say, hey, I can adjust my spot based on that theory. I'm going to put my spot somewhere that it guarantees me a high percentage of alphas, but I'm going to understand that with that 30% loss, I'm going to put that spot where I'm not worried about anything other than if I focus on the spot and I shoot the spot with the respect necessary, I will get what I want. There is no then worry about the no shoot or shoot away from the no shoot. You're going to pre-pick a spot that already has all this stuff in it, and your job is to focus on the spot, shoot the spot with the focus necessary. Sure, you might be aware that there's stuff around you. You might be aware that there's a white target somewhere around that spot, but it doesn't matter. I'm focused on such a tight spot that when my dot parks on it, I'm going to treat it as necessary. And when my dot lifts off of it the second time, I'm allowed to move. Pretty simple concept. Now, that's where I start to see a lot of people give up points is they start to shoot away from the no shoot, or they start to pick, I'm going to shoot the center of brown. And I don't think the center of brown is a good enough concept because if I shoot for the center of brown and at speed I lose up to 30%, well, that means I'm going to start shooting deltas. If I just start shooting at brown, that's even worse. You'll start shooting misses by accident because if your eyes settle on the brown and the brown happens to be the delta and you miss up to 30% of the delta, just predetermining the spot will guarantee me better shots. And here's the freaky part. It doesn't take any more time. It doesn't take more time to predetermine this 1 inch by 1 inch spot by definition of how your eyes work. So I wanted to then, before I go into the whole shot calling, the sooner not faster and all the fancy shit, I wanted to stop and talk about this little nerd thing that I end up talking about in class all the time. This is from Kita Busse, from another lady. Her name is Joan Vickers, and not Vickers like the shooter Vickers. Joan Vickers did a study. It's a visual study, and I'm going to put it in my own caveman, easy to understand way that I use to teach. But essentially what she did is go out of her way to study athletes who aim. And then she went further and said, hey, I'm going to look at elite athletes who aim. So let's say basketball, golf, like anybody who has to use their vision and coordination to aim something into a tight spot. And we could say, by definition, a professional athlete means you're a professional, you're really good. What separated the really good athletes from the elite athletes? What separated the great athletes from the amazing athletes, right? And what she found was vision had a big part of it, or vision really separated the people who aimed. And she didn't include this as like a shooter study. She was studying the eyesight with like eye tracking glasses on, let's just use basketball as an example. If you know who Steph Curry is, he's a great example of shot calling too, so I use him all the time. So I'm going to use Steph Curry as a great example as a basketball player. He is ridiculous at shooting threes. So outside of the arc, when he's going to be shooting a three-point shot, he's very good at taking the time necessary, no more, no less, and always hitting that three. And the moment he's done shooting the three, he could either get on defense because he knows he missed it, or he's going to go on defense because he knows he hit it, or he's going to be the first one to the rebound because he knows that shot wasn't desirable. What the difference was between him and somebody else was that he was picking a tinier spot and focusing on it harder for longer. And that sounds like the sport. It sounds like what I'm asking you to do. So instead of just aiming at the rim, aiming at the target, instead of aiming at the backboard, aiming at Brown, he's going to pick a tiny little paint chip that he imagines in the back of the rim. For us, that's a predetermined spot, right? We just are going to say, I know where that spot is. I know where that perforated A is in the center of the target through a lot of repetition and training. And I'm just going to drive my eyes to that spot. And what the athletes that aim did is they could grab onto that spot sooner and keep their eyes there longer than a traditional athlete. And when they gave up that spot was when the system was done. As soon as the shot was done, they didn't need to look at that spot anymore. They would look at the next piece of information that was valuable to them, meaning they would get onto a spot sooner than somebody, hold the spot longer, and then leave it sooner than the next person. That is what made them a more efficient aimer, because that's what we're talking about. If you're a professional athlete, you're good, you're fast, you're great, awesome. Why are they better than the other professional athletes? Because they are more efficient at using their eyes. They're more efficient at aiming, which was the important part of the sport. So applying that to shooting was a big deal to me. Kita Busse is a huge teacher and proponent of all this visual stuff, and it's one of the big things that I use as one of my secrets. Is it's not a secret, but it's like one of my tools of my system that I think is like one of the more sharp, valuable tools, is by understanding that study and understanding how your vision works. You start to understand that trying to go fast doesn't really account for visual acuity. It doesn't account for these spots. But if I use, we'll call it biohacking, if I understand how my eyes work, and I understand this study, and I understand that if I throw my eyes to a more specific spot sooner and let my gun fall onto that spot, and I keep on that specific spot as long as I need to, I will shoot at a elite level, accuracy wise, and I will lose no time efficiency wise. That was a big deal to start to understand in my training, because then it started to guide me to stop thinking about shooting fast, stop sacrificing visual information, or don't try to skip any processes. Instead, just refine the processes so you have to make it look easy, and I want you to visually lead all the process. That's it. That's all. Is I want the visuals to be in front of every process that you run, and I want every process to be practiced to a point where it physically feels easy, and mentally, visually is the work. And that's where all my shooting changed. I was plateaued off at master for like 2 seasons, and it pissed me off, because when I got in the sport, I jumped into C class immediately in my first season, next season B, next season A, next season master, and now I'm going into winter, and I'm about to shoot a 3rd season as a master, and I'm pissed off about it. And it was Steve Anderson that said it to me. He was like, well, are you practicing the same way you practice to become a master? And I was like, yeah, because it's worked. And he goes, well, if you want to be a grandmaster, you're going to have to practice differently. And I started to realize, in a general sense, I have topped out my physical effort, and I needed to then start to fall back on, then I need to refine this visual portion of things. And that's where all my training changed. And one winter, I decided to just go crazy visually, and I stopped pulling triggers for a lot of my shooting. I started just really focusing on a good grip that stopped using my neck and my shoulders to kind of take the tension out of the shooting. And I instead led with my vision like a psychopath. And by not pulling triggers, I would instead say the word dot. If you listen to previous podcasts, I call this NLP. It's just one of my principles in dry fire, neuro-linguistic programming. So neuro-linguistic programming sounds like nerd shit, like this vision stuff that I'm talking about right now. So that's kind of what I was doing. I was just putting my eyes well ahead of the gun. When the gun arrived, as soon as the dot was in the visual state that I needed to see it, at a 7-yard target, it could be loose. At a 25-yard simulated target, it had to be stopped. Whenever I saw the visual picture that I knew I needed to see, I said the word dot. When I was done saying the T in dot, I'd move my eyes to the next spot, and I started to understand, oh, that's what speed of sight shooting is. This is what it is. It doesn't feel fast. It doesn't feel slow. Your brain is so overwhelmed with mental and visual pictures and things that you're thinking that it doesn't feel like any kind of thing. It feels busy. It feels like you're seeing a lot of certain informations and not a lot of other information. And that kind of is what's going to lead me into this whole sooner, not faster speed of sight shooting. This is what people skip over as feeling good. Like I just I clipped it, so I might drop this little clip in. I might do a little edit right here and put it in. But I had a student finish one of my my weekly matches, one of my stages in my weekly matches, and he crushed it in comparison to the previous run. And I asked him something. I was like, "Did it feel fast?" He said, "No." I was like, "But did it feel slow?" And he said, "No." And that's the moment you start to realize, what did it feel like? And he's like I saw everything. Like I saw every spot. And in fact, in this 42 round stage, he stopped me and he goes, that ninth shot up range, I didn't really like so much. And I go, look at that. You took 42 shots and your ninth shot, you remember? That's how focused on visuals you were. You're not focused on speed at all. That's a pretty big deal to me. That's a huge deal to me. That's where you start to focus on, like, oh man, if you are visually focused, speed doesn't need to be there. Not consciously. It will be there. You will be as fast as your skills allow you to be. If you focus on the visuals, you're going to get what you want. That's a big deal to me. And that's why I started to go into this whole quiet eye stuff. This is why I started to credit Kita. One of Kita's drills that I love is she has almost 180 degrees. It's more like 150 degree, but like a very, very wide transition. And the targets are probably 8 yards, 7 yards out. Not enough to get lucky on, but close enough to go fast, right? And what the goal is you're going to start on one target. And on the beep, you're going to pull your trigger. You're going to look for the spot across. And as soon as you see red, you're going to pull the next trigger. And what I started to realize with that is, oh, wow, I can't shoot any faster physically. But if I link up to a tight spot rather than just the brown paper, the time doesn't change, but the accuracy improved every time. And it freaked me the hell out because it didn't make sense, like logically. Well, if I try and faster, it just doesn't make sense logically because your brain's kind of an enigma, and we're just going to leave it at that. Like, hey, I'm not going to try to beat science. I'm not going to try to beat the studies and the science and the thousands or millions of dollars of data that's gone into visual training of Olympic athletes and F1 drivers and all that kind of stuff. You just start to realize, yeah, leading with your eyes and no conscious control of speed and effort is how people go fast and perform at a really high level. Period. Done. Hard stop. And you can prove it to yourself with little drills like that and literally try it. Take 2 targets, put them at, I'm serious, like 150 degrees, 180 degrees if you have it. Put it at 170. Start with your gun on one target. And I just want you to kind of loosely just shoot it brown, then brown, 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 brown. Now, note the times, note the accuracy. And then what I want you to do is put a little tiny black paster on those targets. And I want you to shoot it black, 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 black. I still want you to shoot as fast as you can, but I want you to shoot as fast as you can at those little tiny black spots. And you're going to start to realize, oh my God, I am actually getting more accurate and not slowing down. That is 100% a Kita drill. That is 100% out of Kita's book, but it will prove to you that visual wins, not effort. So with all that in mind, that's where I do like to say that ACE VR system is a huge help, because what is ACE VR? If you're using it correctly, it's mental and visual training. It's mentally getting used to the fact that my vision leads everything, not effort. I'm just going to do the plan in front of me. I'm going to stick to the plan, and I'm going to lead that plan with vision, not speed or effort. Right? So ACE is a valuable tool, because all the nerd stuff that I'm talking about is how you beat ACE. It's how you get good at ACE. If you want to get ACE scores, if you want to get GM scores in ACE, if you want to like maximize ACE, just grip the gun well at a low ready and shoot as fast as you can see the targets. Now, what do I mean by that? As fast as you know the visual should be. I want you to start understand, like, yeah, 7-yard target, I could just see red on my spot. I had a 25-yard headshot, I should see a stop dot. I'm going to treat the trigger as I need to keep that visual there. That's going to be different person to person, but that's a pretty big deal. So that's where I start to move into the sooner, not faster stuff. Do you want to be a faster shooter? Do you want to be a better shooter? Doing things sooner, not faster, in my mind, is the secret. And really, what is that led by? But it's led by calling shots. Calling shots is a skill that's taught by every instructor at this point, because everybody has a different way that they understand it and teach it. So I'm just going to talk about my way that I understand and I teach it, because if you're doing it correctly, as in you're not wasting any time and you're getting your hits, you're correct. There's not one way to skin a cat. It's just one of those things that, like, there's no one right way to do transitions. I just like to base all my system off of visuals. So, no surprise, shot calling is all visual to me. It's nothing to do with the prescribed speed, prescribed effort, or anything else. If I'm doing everything based on I grip the gun subconsciously, I pull the trigger subconsciously, I do everything based on a conscious visual, well then why would shot calling be any different? So shot calling to me is just going to understand that once I've seen the shot, the sight picture required, the amount of times I've required it, I'm going to give my eyes permission to move. That's simple. The simplest way to put it. Starting to understand that if I need two loose sight pictures, I don't care how loose, I don't care how moving, how crazy they are. If I'm shooting at a 4-yard open target, I expect my we'll say cluster, my streaks to be pretty violent. But as soon as the dot lifts a second time, as soon as that streak is disturbed upwards a second time, that told me everything I needed to know. Well, first of all, if it streaked up and off of my spot, did I get my spot? Did I get my hit on my spot? Yeah, that's it. If I have that little dot jump off of my spot, directly off my spot, what happened? The gun recoiled and the dot lifted off my spot. How could I have anything other than a hit? So if I see that once, see that twice, I'm allowed to move my eyeballs. Well, if I see that once and then the second time I see the dot move violently, but it wasn't off my spot, well, I'm not going to move my eyes off that spot because that means I didn't have a hit. So I don't want you to just shot call off of a sensation of the gun has gone off and moved, because the gun going off doesn't give you any value. Guns go off in the wrong direction all the time. Cough, sig. No, I'm just kidding. But guns go off in the wrong direction all the time, right? So why do you know what the shot is, where the shot is, and why I would move my eyes? Off of accountability of what? Vision. So, hey, I look at the spot. When I see the two visuals I needed to see, the 2 times I needed to see it, I move my eyes to the next spot. What's the next spot going to tell me? How I need to treat it, right? I let the gun recoil off of the spot the second time. I look into the next spot, and I know how to treat the dot as it arrives. Now, that is what shot calling means to me, and that's where speed is going to be. It's going to be in starting to understand that the sooner I call my shot, the faster I can move to the next spot. Sooner, not faster. If I see the second shot go off, do I need a third sight picture? No. Do I need to look at the hold down range to confirm? Definitely not, because all those visuals and all those thoughts take time. Visuals take time. I want you to get just enough visuals to assure that you have the spot, you have the shots, you're shooting with an accountable sight picture, not at the speed of trigger, because the speed of trigger means dick to me. It doesn't give me any value. I can pull the trigger way faster than I can think. I want you to pull the trigger at the speed of thought and the speed of vision. And if that speed isn't good enough, then train that. Don't train pulling the trigger harder and faster. Train seeing faster, seeing more. It's a little bit different. I think ACE is a valuable thing for that. There are drills like doubles, and there's drills out there. My doubles progression will help you understand what it means to see fast and what the visuals I need to see are, because that's what sometimes people are not understanding, is the visuals aren't the same for a 6-yard target, 7-yard target, and a 25-yard target. While the spot we're picking is the same, the visuals are different. So if you're waiting to see the visual on a 6-yard target the same as you're waiting to see a visual on a 25-yard target, that's where the speed is. It's that you're trying to see too perfect of a sight picture. It sounds funny, and then it's uncomfortable to then call shots off of these varying sight pictures, but that's where the mental game comes in. I need to understand what my sight pictures look like at 7 yards. I need to be confident with what they look like at 7 yards, so much so that when my streak just bounces off of that spot a second time, I can throw my eyes to the next activity and do the next activity. And that next activity is also a spot to me. My reload is a spot in my mag well. I've talked about that a couple times, but all I'm really looking for is every time I do a fast reload in my mind, it's that it was well timed. It wasn't that it's fast by I've trained it to a degree that, like, I don't have a lot of extra motion, and it's a efficient reload, and through a lot of reps it's around a 1-second motion, but I'm not thinking effort when I'm thinking go and do a fast reload in a match. What am I thinking is the moment that visual lifts off the target the second time, I'm looking for the visual of the inside of my magwell here, and the moment I see bullets touch the inside of that magwell, I'm putting my vision onto the next thing I'd like to see. And if I time those things correctly, that's where fast reload comes, and that's where, like, the head cam and, like, in match, people go, oh damn, that was a fast reload. And if you actually zoom out and look, it doesn't look very hard. It doesn't look like I and flexed and smashed it. It looks like I just timed it, and through repetition and confidence in visuals, I just allowed the things to happen at the speed that I can see them. I trained to do them enough times that I can see them at an incredibly fast rate, but it wasn't through effort. It was through a lot of repetitions. It's through a lot of refinement. It's through a lot of using your vision in a specific way and understanding that after a while, like if you could physically hold onto the gun and shoot a quarter-second split, you're physically done wrestling the gun. The rest is all going to be mental. If you could physically draw the gun and take a shot at about a 1.25, you're done physically wrestling the gun. I'm not even mean accuracy when I say this, just physically. If you could hold on to the gun and shoot a quarter-second split, you could draw and shoot in 1.25. Physically, your work is done. Now, mentally and visually, not even close. You're not even close to done, and you never will be. That's kind of the fun thing here is like, what is every grandmaster always working on? Their vision and the grip that, not grip to grip the gun better. I don't mean grip to like produce recoil or make it better. They're working on a grip on like, how can I work less hard to achieve the visuals I need? And always working in that relationship of understanding of how little effort do I need to achieve the visuals I need. And that's it. Those are the two big things that grandmasters are like constantly honking on. But now everything is all visual to me. Every shot call is visual. The spot I'm running to is visual. I'm not just running to that target over there. We did a walkthrough. I know that target starts to begin presenting to my vision. I know I can start seeing that target at that spot on the ground. So where do I run to? I'm going to sprint to that spot on the ground until I'm about 3 steps out. And I know once I'm 3 steps out from that spot on the ground, when I present my gun, the target will be in my vision. I can start shooting as sooner, not faster, as soon as I see the target with the visuals required. And I'm not consciously controlling speed. I'm starting to do things as soon as possible. I'm done as soon as possible. Sooner, not faster, but sooner is faster. And now that's what my whole system is. Spot, 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 spot. Spot on target, spot on target, spot on target, spot on target, spot where I'm running to, spot on target, reload spot, etc., etc. Well, swingers are the same thing to me, just a different kind of application. My spot is based off of the apex of the swinger. We're gamers. We get to see the swinger ahead of time, right? So you know where the swinger is the most visible. When it's the most visible, that's also its most repeatable spot. It's typically the apex of the top or the dwell at the bottom. And what I'll typically start to do is I'll envision a spot where the target is going to be dwelling at the bottom or where it's always going to pass at the top. And then instead of gluing that spot to the target, because the target moves, I'm going to envision where that spot is in space. And when the target leaves, I'm going to glue that spot to the backstop. And I know from this spot on the ground, if I aim my gun at that spot on the backstop, the swinger will pass it every single time. And I know if I'm looking at that spot on the backstop and I'm focused on that spot and I see brown and I'm aware of brown, I'll pull my trigger when I see brown and I'm going to get my spot every single time. And now that takes, again, a lot of practice and confidence to start to trust, but you start to realize, well, then swingers are just visual too. They're visual off a spot. Now, the acceptable sight picture you're looking for is slightly different because it's a different target, but you could start to say, well, any stationary target, you just need to define what a acceptable sight picture is to achieve the shots you want on that target. Same thing goes with a swinger. And then you need to just start plugging that into random performance training, not just sitting there and isolating it. Once you've isolated the skill you need, once you've isolated the sight picture you need to see, you start to shoot it at random. Start to shoot it in random designated target sequences. You need to start shooting it in random performance drills and start to understand from any direction in any order, can I achieve this sight picture? Can I see this sight picture? Can I stop and be comfortable shooting the sight picture and move off of it? That's where a lot of people's training are lacking. It's like, hey, I know what I need to see when they just define this one target and then they stop the random training. They just define it directly and then they don't really know how to treat that target if it happened to be surrounded by targets that weren't similar to it, or if they had to do an entry or an exit off that target, they're not comfortable on it. So start to define what the acceptable visual is on every single target out there and then start to shoot it at random, especially the ones you're uncomfortable with, especially when people say, I hate this target at this distance or this target at this then that means you need to shoot it at every single one of your practice sessions until you understand the visual necessary and it becomes simple to achieve the visuals necessary just due to repetition. Physically, it's not hard to hold a gun, shoot a gun, transition a gun. It shouldn't be if you're listening to this podcast or if you're getting into competition. You start to understand physically, it's not that difficult to hold on to a 9mm gun. And I'm not saying to shoot fast and accurately. I'm just saying, hey, to hold on to a 9mm and to shoot it and let it come back into side of my vision. It's not very physically demanding. It's very, very mentally and visually demanding to operate at the speeds we operate at. And that's what kind of is our superpower as shooters. Our superpower as shooters is our vision and our ability to process information and think very quickly. under pressure and under time. Everybody can pull triggers quickly. Not everybody can think and solve problems quickly under that kind of stress. And that's what competition shooters are doing. We're just solving a puzzle or doing a pattern that we've predetermined under stress, under pressure. That's it. That's all. It's not physically that difficult. It's mentally very difficult. If you get good at the visuals necessary, if you get good at stopping the physical input and just start to rely on the shot calling and the vision and the spots, you start to realize that shooting is simple. It's not easy, but it's simpler if you just let it happen. You let it happen based off visuals. If you stop trying so hard and you just say, hey, whenever you see the thing, do the thing, that's a much simpler way to do it. And that's kind of funny thing here, because as much as I'm trying to talk all this nerd stuff, I'm trying to make it easier to understand, and I'm trying to make it I'm trying to make it more applicable to people. I'm not trying to add more vision. I can throw fucking college words all over the place that nobody understands, and I'm sure I barely even understand. I'm not going to sit here and talk about proprioception and muzzle. It's a whole bunch of nonsense. It's my job to go out to Kita, and it's my job to listen to these studies by people like Joan Vickers and just try to relate it to you guys and try to make it simple for you guys. One of the studies that I love, F1 drivers talk about using their vision and not using tension all the time. And one of my favorite quotes from the F1 world is performance comes from a calm mind and relaxed body. It's a big deal. What do F1 drivers do before a race? They'll walk the damn track. They're a person. They're walking on a huge track. They're looking at every spot on the ground, and they're looking at where they're going or what they're going to do. So when they're going 220 miles an hour, they're just simply reacting to visuals that they're intimately familiar with. Kind of sounds familiar, right? If you're a good stage planner, you should walk around that stage so that you're intimately familiar with every point that matters to you, every spot on the target. And then when you're going 200 miles an hour, you're not thinking about how fast you're going. You're basing it off of, I'm going to go there, do this thing, go there, do this thing, go there, do this thing. Hey, I'm done. Cool. And then guess what? Doesn't feel fast, doesn't feel slow. It feels like I saw everything. That's the magic of all this. When you hit those moments where you're like, wow, I didn't consciously control speed, but I didn't get a single extra thought. I didn't get a single extra sight picture. Download that as the best thing you've done, because that's what the magic is in all this. So I'll leave it there. I could sit here and nerd out about this forever, but that's my little vision shot calling block that I like to talk about. Now, there's some drills out there that are fantastic for it. Tim Herron does a fantastic drill for it, where you're calling shots at distance at like 15 yards, understanding that when I see a dot rise off of my spot, that's where the shot was. And if I didn't have the dot rise off of that spot, it's not a problem if I'm aware of it. You start to understand, you start to value the sight pictures, and you start to value good sight pictures over bad sight pictures. Steve Anderson does a fun drill too, where you start to use a very shot up target and put a clean target behind it. I might be switching who did what target, because they both do shot calling drills, and I've taken both classes, and I like both of what they taught. But I like to start to understand, you're just starting to value sight pictures. And when I see a certain sight picture, you know you've either got what you want or you didn't get what you want. That's it. You're not basing it off of vision, speed, or anything but vision. You're not basing it off of speed. You're basing it off of, what did I see? Did I like what I see? I will leave if I like what I saw. Pretty simple process, right? So Timmy has some good ones. Kita has some great shot calling stuff. Shot calling is an interesting thing to start to work on. And I start to talk about, once you're fast enough, once you're doing a 25 split, once you're doing 1 1/4 draws and things like that, shot calling is going to be the thing that makes you better. Not any more tenths of a second, not anymore, not even hundredth of a second. It's going to be shot calling. It's going to be visual. It's going to be mental stuff. So I'll leave it there. That's going to be my little spot for that. So I hope this microphone sounded and looked a little bit better. I don't see it. That's why I said it looked a little bit better. But thank you guys for sticking with me here. Again, any kind of training, it's now season. Any kind of training you're looking for, I'm up in the Pocono Mountains. I do private training constantly. I'm always doing private sessions with people, kind of working on your goals at your speed, at your level. I've got plenty of secrets to help you get to where you're at. I'll help you with your dry fire schedules, things like that. I also do a digital version of that in case you're not in the Poconos and can't come to me. We could do a session online. I have my weekly matches now. So every Wednesday and Friday at 11 a.m., I have a squad that runs through a match. So it's a public match, but it just fills up because I'm the one person. I do one squad per day. Now in May, I'm adding a third squad. So it'll be 11 a.m. on Wednesday, 11 a.m. on Friday, and then 4 p.m. on Friday. I'll have 3 squads that'll run through, a fourth if I can fit it. I almost spoiled a secret there. But what's going to end up happening is the matches get formatted for the upcoming major that I'm going to face. So right now, Delmarva's coming up. So I have like 42 round stage, huge banger stages, because Delmarva's going to have a couple big ones. It's also a coached match. So it's a USPSA affiliated match. There's a classifier. It's a real match. It's just that I'm there as my job is to help you pre and post run, make your runs better, and then because it's midweek, you didn't blow your Sunday match, and you can go out on Sunday and apply what you learned at my matches to real matches. It also works for a lot of I have very experienced shooters come out and try new divisions, get classified in new divisions, try new stuff out. Train for upcoming matches in the middle of the week because we're weird people and sometimes we like to take off to go shoot matches. So other than that, I have my competition fundamentals class coming up May 3rd, and then the next day, May 4th, is my public USPSA match I have up there, 5 squads, like normal 6-stage match, just like at any other public club. But my competition fundamentals is pretty much my crash course. And by the way, a lot of this vision stuff is in it. I do a whole rundown on first all the skills and drill portion of things, performance training, and then we go into the magic of stages and how to break down stages and things like that. So competition fundamentals will be the next one coming. And then I am taking that on the road up to Massachusetts as well. But I have then all my instructors start to come in. Mason Lane will be in May 29th, 30th, and then 31st, June 1st. So he's doing 2 classes back to back. After that, Steve Anderson will be up here in July. And then in August, me and Kita will be teaching our Smart Move class together. Well, her Smart Move class together. I'm just kind of like the donkey that does all the demos and helps her do a lot of other stuff. It's just I like teaching with her. She's been the basis of a lot of my training in the background here. So thank you guys for sticking around, listening to all this kind of stuff. Head to my website, CallahanTrainingGroup.com, for all my training, for my merch, for anything like that. And as always, the last thing I like to tell everybody, don't forget to dry fire.